She pushed the mop across the hangar floor at 5 a.m., invisible to everyone rushing past in flight suits. They saw just another cleaning lady in coveralls. But when the siren started screaming and enemy aircraft appeared on radar, she dropped that mop and walked toward the F-16 like she owned it. Welcome to Daily Story. Before we begin this incredible tale of hidden identity and a moment of truth, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to join our community. The Nellis Air Force Base hangar opened its massive doors to another pre-dawn morning, fluorescent lights humming to life across acres of concrete and steel. Maria Santos pushed her industrial mop bucket through the shadows, moving between the sleeping giants of American air power with practiced silence. She wore the same thing every day: navy blue coveralls with Santos stitched above the breast pocket, steel-toed boots that had seen better years, and a faded baseball cap that hid most of her graying hair. At 52, she had the weathered hands of someone who had spent decades working with cleaning chemicals and industrial equipment, but her posture remained straight, disciplined in a way that most people never noticed. The pilots called her the ghost because she moved through the hangar so quietly, finishing her work before most of them arrived for morning briefings. They would nod politely when they passed her, but their eyes always looked through her, past her, as if she were just another piece of equipment that kept the base running. Captain Jake Morrison had been stationed at Nellis for 2 years and had probably seen Maria thousands of times, but he couldn't have picked her out of a lineup. To him, she was background noise, part of the invisible infrastructure that maintained the billion-dollar aircraft he flew. When he dropped coffee on the hangar floor near his F-16, he simply walked away, knowing someone would clean it up. Maria did clean it up, just as she cleaned the hydraulic fluid leaks, the rubber marks from landing gear, and the countless other messes left behind by pilots who never thought about who maintained their workspace. She took pride in her work, ensuring every aircraft gleamed under the hangar lights, every surface was spotless and ready for inspection. But what none of them knew, what none of them had ever bothered to ask, was why Maria Santos chose to work the graveyard shift at an Air Force base. Why she sometimes paused when cleaning certain cockpits, her hand lingering on flight controls with the familiarity of muscle memory. Why she kept a faded photo in her locker of 8 pilots standing beside their aircraft, their faces hidden by shadows and tactical gear. The morning of March 15th started like any other. Maria arrived at 4:30 a.m., signed in with the security guard who barely looked up from his newspaper, and began her rounds. The hangar held 12 F-16 Fighting Falcons, each one worth $30 million, each one representing the cutting edge of American air superiority. She started with aircraft number 847, the same jet she'd been assigned to clean for the past 3 years. As she wiped down the canopy, she noticed fresh scratches on the HUD display mount. Someone had been careless during the previous day's mission. She made a note to report it to maintenance, then continued her methodical cleaning routine. The pilots began arriving at 6 a.m. for their morning briefing. Maria was invisible to them as they walked past, discussing flight plans and weather conditions. She had learned to read their body language over the years, could tell when they were nervous about a difficult mission or confident about routine training exercises. Today felt different. There was tension in their voices, urgency in their movements. She overheard fragments of conversation as they passed, increased activity along the border. Unidentified aircraft. Readiness level elevated. At 7:45 a.m., Maria was cleaning the last aircraft when the emergency klaxon began to wail. The sound cut through the hangar like a knife, sending pilots running toward their aircraft. Red lights flashed from the ceiling as the base-wide announcement crackled over the intercom system. Alert! Alert! Scramble all available aircraft. Unidentified fighters are approaching from the southwest. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. The hangar exploded into controlled chaos. Ground crews raced to prepare aircraft for immediate launch. Pilots sprinted toward their assigned jets, flight suits half-zipped, helmets in hand. Maria pressed herself against the wall, staying out of the way as the carefully choreographed dance of military urgency unfolded around her. She watched as 11 pilots reached their aircraft. Captain Morrison stumbled as he ran, his face pale and sweating. He made it 3 steps up the ladder to his cockpit before doubling over and vomiting onto the hangar floor. Food poisoning from the previous night's dinner had finally caught up with him. "I can't fly," Morrison gasped to his crew chief. "I can barely stand." The crew chief keyed his radio immediately. "Tower, we have a pilot down. Aircraft 847 is without crew." The response came back tense and urgent. Negative on backup pilots. Everyone else is airborne or assigned. That bird stays grounded. Maria heard the exchange from 30 feet away. She saw the crew chief's frustrated expression, saw Morrison being helped away from his aircraft by 2 medics. She saw 11 F-16s taxiing toward the runway, while one sat silent and abandoned. For a moment, she hesitated. For 3 years, she had maintained her cover, lived her carefully constructed life as an invisible cleaning lady. She had sworn never to reveal who she really was, never to step back into the world she had left behind. But through the hangar's open doors, she could see smoke trails on the horizon. Enemy aircraft, closing fast on American airspace. Somewhere out there, 11 American pilots were about to face an unknown number of hostile fighters, and they were 1 pilot short. Maria Santos dropped her mop. She walked across the hangar floor with purpose, her steel-toed boots echoing off the concrete. The crew chief saw her coming and started to wave her away. This is a restricted area. You need to. I'm taking that aircraft, Maria said calmly, nodding toward the F-16. The crew chief stared at her. Lady, I don't know what you think you're doing, but... Maria pulled something from her coveralls pocket. A worn leather wallet, old and faded. She opened it and showed him a military ID card, the kind that never expires, the kind that opens doors most people don't even know exist. Colonel Maria Santos, United States Air Force. Retired. The crew chief's mouth fell open. The ID showed the same face, 15 years younger, in dress blues with enough ribbons on her chest to stock a small parade. Distinguished Flying Cross, Maria said quietly, seeing his expression. Silver Star. 2 Purple Hearts. 2,847 combat flight hours over Iraq and Afghanistan. I've been out of the cockpit for 7 years, but some things you don't forget. She walked past the stunned crew chief and began climbing the ladder to aircraft 847. Her movements were different now, no longer the shuffling gait of a tired cleaning lady, but the precise, confident motions of a combat pilot. Colonel, the crew chief called after her, his voice shaking. Your flight suit, your helmet. Maria paused at the top of the ladder. I'll make do with what I have. She settled into the cockpit like she was coming home. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency, muscle memory taking over as she began the startup sequence. The engines spooled to life with a rising whine that vibrated through the hangar. The crew chief keyed his radio with trembling fingers. Tower, this is Hangar 7. Aircraft 847 has a pilot. I repeat, 847 is mission ready. Copy that, Hangar 7. Who's the pilot? The crew chief looked up at the cockpit where Maria was running through pre-flight checks with textbook precision. Tower. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. 5 minutes later, Colonel Maria Santos taxied F-16 number 847 toward the runway. She wore her cleaning coveralls instead of a flight suit, a borrowed helmet that didn't quite fit, but her hands on the controls were steady as stone. In the tower, controllers watched their screens in amazement as the 12th aircraft joined the formation. The pilot's voice came over the radio, calm and professional. Tower, this is Ghost Lead. Requesting permission to join the fight. Copy that, Ghost Lead. You're cleared for takeoff. Good hunting. What happened next became legend at Nellis Air Force Base. The enemy formation consisted of 14 aircraft, more than intelligence had reported. The 11 American fighters were outnumbered and outgunned when they made contact. That's when Ghost Lead arrived. Maria Santos hadn't lost a step. If anything, years of exile had sharpened her edge, made her hungrier. She dove into the enemy formation like an avenging angel, her F-16 dancing through the sky with lethal grace. She splashed 3 enemy fighters in the first engagement, her missiles finding their marks with surgical precision. When she ran out of long-range weapons, she closed to gun range, her cannon fire walking across enemy aircraft with the accuracy that had once made her the top graduate of the Air Force's elite weapons school. Jesus Christ, one of the younger pilots radioed. Who is that? That, came the reply from the squadron commander, is why they call her the Ghost. When the smoke cleared, the enemy formation was destroyed or retreating. 12 American aircraft were returning to base, all pilots accounted for. In the lead was an F-16 flown by a woman in cleaning coveralls, who had just reminded everyone why she once held the Air Force's highest combat decorations. Maria landed last, her aircraft touching down with the gentle precision of someone who had done it thousands of times before. As she taxied back to the hangar, she could see crowds gathering. Word had spread across the base. The cleaning lady was Colonel Santos. The invisible woman was a legend. She shut down the engines and climbed out of the cockpit to find hundreds of people waiting. Pilots, ground crews, officers, and enlisted personnel. They stood in respectful silence as she descended the ladder, her coveralls still bearing the name tag Santos above a chest that had once worn more medals than most people see in a lifetime. Base Commander General Patricia Hayes stepped forward. Maria came to attention automatically, 3 decades of military discipline overriding everything else. "Colonel Santos," the general said, "I believe we need to talk." Maria nodded. "Yes, we do. Your retirement papers were accepted 7 years ago. Officially, you don't exist in our system anymore." "I know. But unofficially." The general smiled. "Unofficially, I think we might have a position for you, if you're interested." Maria looked around the hangar, at the aircraft she had cleaned for 3 years, at the faces of people who had looked through her for so long. Then she looked up at the F-16 she had just flown in combat, its engines still ticking as they cooled. "General," she said quietly, "I think I'd like that very much." 6 months later, Colonel Maria Santos was back in uniform, leading the 64th Aggressor Squadron at Nellis Air Force Base. She still arrived before dawn, but now she came to fly, not to clean. The cleaning lady who had been invisible for 3 years became the most visible symbol of hidden strength on the base. Her story spread throughout the Air Force, a reminder that heroes often walk among us unrecognized, waiting for the moment when their true calling emerges. She never forgot those 3 years of invisibility. In her new office, she kept her old name tag from the coveralls, the simple piece of fabric that read Santos. It reminded her that respect isn't about rank or recognition. It's about what you do when no one is watching, and what you're prepared to do when everything depends on it. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the most obvious one. Sometimes it's the quiet person in the corner, the one everyone overlooks, the one who's been waiting patiently for their moment to show the world who they are. Maria Santos spent 3 years being invisible. But when her country needed her, she stepped out of the shadows and reminded everyone that true warriors never really retire. They just wait for the call to serve again. So now I ask you, have you ever known someone who seemed ordinary until the moment they revealed their extraordinary past? Someone who served quietly, worked humbly, but carried the heart of a hero? Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden heroes in your life, the ones who deserve recognition but never ask for it. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that greatness often hides in plain sight, hit that subscribe button and join the Daily Story community. We are here to honor the unsung heroes, the quiet warriors, the invisible champions who make our world safer without ever asking for applause. Thank you for watching, and remember, the next time you see someone doing a humble job with quiet dignity, look a little closer. You might be standing next to a hero.